is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Yeah, here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Broadcasting 2 hours a day, right here, high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountain Studio A. And there's a link to your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. So if you'd like to share the broadcast with friends and family, just go to USAPREPARES.com and click on Listen to Vincent, GCN, and you'll be able to download the podcast for free. We have streaming 24/7. Absolutely free. Converging threats, confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Alex is producing the worldwide broadcast. Wow, we had a meetup last night. Absolutely packed house. It's really neat. I was away from the meetup for 2 weeks, and Judy and John Dollarheight and Ken and Jason took control, and they were at the con, and they ran the meetup for a couple weeks, and they did a great job, and I want to thank them for it. So last night we talked about saving money on all kinds of levels, and here's what we did. We just went around the restaurant, and we passed the microphone around, and we talked about how to save money and what worked and what didn't work. Unbelievable. Meetup started at 5:30. I didn't get home till midnight, and there were a lot of great tips, and I'm going to start sharing them with you. I'm recording them, 1-minute tips of the day, and they get broadcast on one of our affiliates, Big Country 99, every day. And so I'm going to post them on the website so you'll be able to listen to those tips. Currently, we're going to be talking about survival. In the classroom is our senior USAPrepares.com technical instructor, Daryl Holland. He's a master riflesmith. If you read hunting and gun-related articles and magazines, you've heard of Daryl Holland. He's the president of Holland's Shooter Supply in Powers, Oregon. And we'll give you the contact information a little later. You know, Daryl worked as Jeff Cooper's gunsight gunsmith. Okay, he designed and developed some of the first heavy barrels for the AR-15 and the Ruger 1022s in 1977. So he's a designer, he's a developer, he's an innovator. Welcome, Daryl.
Good morning. How are you today?
Daryl, I'm great. You know, you and I first met. We have several friends in common. Gene Kelly has an event, an annual event called Gun Stock. He had it in Nevada, and the freeze dry guy said, "Hey, Vinny, you need to go to this event." So I flew out with Dr. Howard Shayne. He's our dentist at USAPrepares.com. He teaches emergency dentistry. So he and I flew out, and that's where we met you. And I attended your seminars, and it was absolutely fabulous. So I just want to tell you, I really enjoy your friendship, and thanks for being on the air with us to share with us your knowledge. So why don't we talk about something new that you've developed? Your fire starter. Why is a fire starter so important, Daryl?
It's a very unique fire starter to the industry, one that is a self-contained unit. Mm-hmm. For most folks, they're familiar with a flint and steel or the little magnesium bars there, but in reality, those are not a self-contained unit. When the chips are down and you've got to get out and build a fire with one of those, you've got to grovel around, you've got to find some dry tinder, you've got to do something in order to get that initial fire going. Well, seeing that type of a need and the minimal amount of spark that was generated by other fire starters on the market, the boy and I sat down and decided to develop our own fire starter that contained all of the important features of over 30 years in the woods dealing with Boy Scouts, camping trips, Klondike derbies, to actually build a better fire starter. And we've certainly done that. The product is called a Lightning Strike Fire Starter. It contains a ferrocerium rod that is encapsulated in a special tube. And what this does is it concentrates the spark directly to whatever tinder we're doing. It has a large storage handle that we have our proprietary tinder that we manufacture. It has a large striker, so you can even build a fire with one hand. A lot of times if you're in an airplane crash, a bush pilot, you take a bad fall in the woods somewhere, you may indeed injure yourself. And having the ability to get a fire going in just a matter of seconds with one hand could mean the difference between being a statistic or coming home and continuing on in the gene pool.
Yeah.
So we really think we've come up with a great product. You can watch some great YouTube clips and stuff on it. You can check it out on our website. It's about the size of a mini mag flashlight. You've got enough tinder stored in the handle to build 12 to 15 fires, and Helen Keller can build a fire with a single strike with this particular unit.
It's the video that you have on your website. You've got a caveman there trying to start a fire, and then you show up on the scene and you help them, and it's really kind of a really neat little short video on how the fire starter works, and I think, class, I think you'll be impressed. So, Daryl, good luck with it.
You bet. Well, the thing that's happened is, for, like I say, decades in the woods and being around other people, when you watch someone try and get a fire going with one of these charm bracelet type fire starters or even the little magnesium brick, you sit there and you wait and you watch and you wait and you watch, and pretty soon the gallon of gas and the road flare comes out because they get frustrated with their inability to build a fire. And in order to get a fire going with those types of fire starters, you've got to be extremely skilled, and not many folks are in that regard. They go, oh, yeah, how hard can it be? And when Mother Nature decides to conspire against you, well, now your mettle is being tested, and if you haven't been out there practicing and stuff, you're going to have some pretty tough times. You can do without water, you can do without food for days or weeks, but hypothermia will kill you in a matter of hours under the right conditions.
Daryl, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if I wanted to build a fire today, it's not a big problem because the weather's kind of nice. 72 degrees out here in Missouri. It's not raining. But if I wanted to build a fire under tougher conditions, rain, dampness, snow, freezing weather, high winds, it'd be a lot tougher. So I think it's great that you took those years of experience with camping, hiking, scouting, put all that together, and built the fire starter that will work under all those circumstances.
Absolutely. And, stroke for stroke, spark for spark, we produce probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 to 3 times the amount of spark of the best fire starter on the market, and condense it directly to the tinder. And, by watching the video, you'll see that in action. We've got kids from 5, 6, 7 years old building a fire instantly with our unit. Give them a magnesium bar and see what happens. It just isn't going to work. So, whether it's in your bug-out bag, keep it in the glove box of your car, throw it in your day pack, having the ability to build a fire is survival skill number one, in my opinion.
Okay. And Daryl, as you look at the different technologies for building a fire, I assume that what you're saying is that you took your innovative skills, your machinist type skills, because you are a machinist. You actually manufacture. I assume that you made this in the United States.
Yes, we did. Everything in the machine 7075 T6 aluminum body is machined here in the States. Our ferrocerium rod, unfortunately, comes out of Europe. It's not Chinese, but it is the best ferrocerium rod that money can buy. Ferrocerium rods, unfortunately, are not made here in the States. So we had to go abroad for that. Outside of that, everything else is machined by Americans for Americans here in the good old U.S. of A. And it is a lifetime fire starter. You'll never wear it out. The ferrocerium rods are replaceable. It's just the last fire starter you'll need to buy. Awesome.
And there's a link to Daryl on the website, usaprepares.com. Daryl Holland, Hollands, I'm sorry, Holland. It's from Holland Shooters Supply. That's his company. Daryl, how do we get to your website?
Website is www.hollandguns.com, and right on the main page you can click on our shooter section to find the fire starter and watch the little DVD we've got going there. It's also available on YouTube. We've got multiple people that have contributed their own little YouTube clips, so a lot of great information there about the fire starter. And for listeners today, if you buy 2 fire starters, we'll throw in an extra tinder refill kit, which is a $10 value.
There you go. So that's Holland Guns, Holland guns.com. Go to the shooters section, and you'll find the fire starters. Daryl, you're a big proponent of hand loading your own ammunition. You're a long-distance shooter, a long-range shooter. You teach it. You compete in it. Let's talk about the importance of hand loading ammunition.
The thing that we've really found over the years that if you expect to get top-notch performance out of any gun, your ability to handcraft or tailor ammunition for that rifle is really paramount. Now, over the years, we've seen a significant improvement in the factory's ammunition that is available to the shooter in specific calibers. Bullet technology has definitely improved in the last 5 to 10 years, different powders, loading techniques, etc., to where in some of the .308 calibers, Federal Match, Black Hills Match, you can get a pretty decent round that will shoot well in about 90% of the guns out there. However, for different applications, specialty bullets, whether we're using Berger bullets, Noslers, or a Sierra bullet with a high ballistic coefficient, you really need to develop your own load that is tailored to that harmonic node of that individual rifle.
Daryl, let's talk about what a harmonic node of a rifle is.
When the gun goes off, the firing pin ignites the primer, which ignites the powder column, causing the bullet to be propelled down the barrel. There's a vibratory node that travels at approximately 19,000 feet a second up and down the barrel. Well, imagine now the barrel being like an antenna, and as the vibratory node gets out towards the end of the muzzle, this causes a more rapid oscillation of the barrel.
There you go. Daryl Holland's with us, hollandguns.com, hollandguns.com. He's our expert, serious instructor, senior USAPrepares.com instructor. Daryl Holland and I will be right back. Daryl Holland's with us, and we're talking about rifle barrels. And one of the things that Daryl mentioned was that there's a harmonic node in the barrel when the cartridge is discharged. And there's a vibratory node, and he talked about how many feet per second the projectile, or how many feet per second this vibratory node is. So, Daryl, let's talk a little bit more about that, and let's talk about the importance of having tuning your cartridge to that barrel.
Absolutely. As we mentioned before the break now, this oscillation mode, when the harmonic node gets to the end of the barrel, this oscillation is at its greatest circumference, if you will. The barrel is moving at its maximum arc at that point, and when the bullet exits the barrel, this is the reason your gun patterns rather than groups. Now, the oscillation node will race to the end of the barrel, come back to the receiver, back to the muzzle, back to the receiver, approximately 6.5 times before a bullet exits the muzzle, going at roughly 3,000 feet a second. So we're timing the exit of the bullet to where the harmonic node now is back at the receiver or the recoil lug, leaving the muzzle of the barrel in the most stable position or most consistent position for the exit of the bullet. And this is done through a course adjustment in the powder that we use. We want to get that bullet up and running, get the harmonic node maybe in the halfway point or two-thirds of the way back in the powder charge, and then we fine-tune the load by adjusting the seating depth literally in thousandths of an inch, changing the exit rate relative to the harmonic node that is racing up and down the barrel. And this is how we fine-tune a load to shoot to its best potential in that given gun. So a little bit of a science.
So, Daryl, that explains why. Yeah, and that explains why you'll read in articles that you'll have to find the best ammunition for your particular rifle, because we're talking about powder types, bullet weights, and the seating depth.
Absolutely. All of these things
to mention
come
just a
into
few.
play. And I think the classic stage is, for those of our listeners that may shoot a rimfire, when we look at rimfire ammunition as a whole, there's a lot of varieties there: bullet shapes, bullet designs, bullet weights, and velocities. And if you're going to try and find the best 22 rimfire ammunition for your gun, it's best to buy a box of maybe 10 or 15 different brands and go out and specifically shoot that ammunition, and you will see a variety of group sizes with the different types of ammo based upon its bullet weight and velocity, burn rate of the powder. And obviously choose the one that shoots best in your gun, because we can't go hand load or fine tune the rimfire ammunition. But with centerfire ammunition we can, and by adjusting our powder rate, bullet weight, muzzle velocity, seating depth, as you suggest, that's how we fine tune the load. There's a lot of good components.
Daryl, when I
go ahead.
I say that, Daryl, when I select, we have a long delay, Daryl. It's almost a second. I'm not sure. It's 859 milliseconds between me and in Missouri and Minnesota, and then we add in the delay to go out to the West Coast too. So it's probably about 2 seconds. So we need to keep that in mind. So, Daryl, here's what I've done with 22 rimfire. I would buy several different types, as you mentioned. I didn't get more than maybe 10 different types of ammo. Find the box that works the best, and then I would go buy a case of that exact lot number of that brand and model. Is that what you recommend?
Absolutely. In the rimfire game, that's the best approach. Now, I've shot a lot of rimfire in my life. I've killed a lot of animals with a rimfire, and I'll share a little bit of wisdom there with our listeners today. In terms of an effective killing round, the Winchester PowerPoint hollow point 40-grain copper-plated bullet, in my testing and evaluating, has been probably some of the best overall hunting ammunition for the rimfire. I've killed raccoons, I've killed rabbits, I've killed coyotes, I've killed dogs, feral cats. It's been a very, very effective round in that regard. It also shoots reasonably well in a majority of rimfire.
There you go, the Winchester PowerPoint. Daryl Holland's with us. Daryl, when we come back, let's talk about reloading equipment. What do we need, and what's it going to cost, and how do we get started in reloading for the first time? Daryl Holland, HollandGuns.com. Daryl Holland's with us, and we're talking about reloading. Daryl, if one of our class wants to get involved with reloading cartridges, what's involved? Let's talk about the equipment, and let's talk about some brands that you like, and maybe some of the costs during the next 25 minutes.
You bet. We do a lot of loading classes here at our school in Oregon. They're intense 2-day courses using all of our own equipment, and over the years we found really what works best and what to avoid. So this is a great topic for all of our listeners there. We found that the Forester coax press is probably the best reloading press out there, in that it allows your reloading die to float. This significantly improves the concentricity of the sizing operation as well as the bullet seating in our ammunition. It's important to note as well that we need to use good components. Yes, I realize that, there's severe shortages out there of bullets, powder, brass, primers, etc., but don't go out to the range and expect to get pickups. Some Winchester, some Federal, Remington, a couple of Lapua cases thrown in, and expect to load all of that brass to match grade standards. Number one, you're probably going to experience some pressure curves there that may indeed be dangerous to you and or the firearm. if you're loading near red line. So beware of that. But with a Forester press, you're covered. When it comes to loading dies by RCBS or Redding are preferred. I prefer the Redding dies because they allow you to change the bushings, which changes the neck tension, another tuning point in the ammunition, and we can fine-tune the amount of bullet grip or tension holding the bullet in the cartridge case for our rifles. Now, in semi-automatic guns, you need a little more neck tension there to hold the bullet to keep them from surging in the magazine box and setting the bullet deeper in the case. In a bolt-action rifle, neck tension is usually around 2 to 3 thousandths, depending upon the caliber that we are shooting. When it comes to powder scales, provided you have electricity, the RCBS Chargemaster Combo is a fantastic unit. It's very fast. It allows you to weigh powder charges within 1/10 of a grain. But again, every survival-minded individual should have a balance beam scale in their loading cabinet, so if the power's out, if you're loading by candlelight somewhere, that you can get the job done with the old-fashioned balance beam scale. So those are kind of the basics there that are really required. A case mouth chamfer tool is real important for getting a good case mouth chamfer both inside and out, and a trimmer. So once the brass has been shot repeatedly, we can go in and trim the cartridge case back to a specified dimension. The proper adjustment of our die is the next most critical thing, and a lot of people really have a misunderstanding as to what's going on there. We're in the process of developing some gauges that will work in conjunction with your loading die, minimizing oversizing, if you will, of the cartridge case, creating headspace, which ultimately results in case head separation.
Daryl, I'm looking at this press that you're talking about, the Forester press. It's quite an impressive press. It's about, by the time you're done with it, it's almost $500. But it looks a lot more substantial than the typical presses that you see. My press, I have an orange crusher. I use a single stage. So do you recommend single stage?
Single stage presses will get you by. The problem is keeping the die in alignment with the ram. That's the key, and when it's not in alignment and we go to size the case, we are pushing the neck out of concentricity with the case body, and this in some cases can significantly reduce the accuracy potential of the ammunition we're trying to produce.
So does that mean that you like a progressive type or a multiple stage press rather than a single stage?
Redding, in terms of progressive type presses, Redding makes a real nice one. Obviously, we have the presses by Dillon, which are a progressive press. Every time you pull the handle, once you get it oriented, you're creating a loaded round. And that produces pretty decent ammunition, but it doesn't produce what we call match grade or bench rest grade ammunition.
Okay. So if we want bench grade, match grade, what do we have to buy?
You really need a Forester press, the RCBS Chargemaster Combo, a good set of Redding dies with the adjustable bushing, a case trimmer. Redding makes a good case trimmer. The folks at Forester make a good case trimmer as well. And that'll pretty well set you up. With a little bit of skill and expertise, you're quite capable of producing ammunition that will shoot sub-half minute in a decent gun. In a good custom gun, you'll be able to shoot stuff in the 2s and 3s or quarter to third minute accuracy.
Okay, so Daryl, if we're going to be reloading, we're going to need several items. We're going to need primers, we're going to need brass, we're going to need projectiles, the bullets, and we're going to need powder, and we're going to need some tools. We're going to need a scale, the press, the ream, some of the other tools that go with it. What's it going to cost for the tools if we want to be middle of the road and get it right the first time, or maybe 3/4 of the way up the scale in terms of quality? How much is it going to cost us?
If a guy does a little bit of shopping around and, watching at gun shows, watching at yard sales, on the internet, eBay, different areas like that, you can get yourself set up to load quality ammunition for somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to $1,000, depending upon the type of units you get and how much, obviously, you're paying. If you shop around, I've had a lot of students buy the Forester Press for $250. You can buy a good balance beam scale for $25 to $40. A good set of dies is going to run you $50 to $100, depending upon the type of cedar that you get. A few little hand tools, case mouth chamfer tools, $25, $30 there. So like I say, $500 to $1,000 if you're a little bit Scotch and get out there and beat the bushes will allow you to get a good setup to load ammunition.
Okay, and Daryl, when you talk about dyes, what kind of material do you like the dyes to be made of?
Well, the dyes are made out of a heat-treated alloy that's very hard once it's machined. I like a full-length seating or sizing die rather than a neck die, especially when it comes to loading defensive ammunition. We want the round to chamber each and every time. And on that note, if you are going to load your own defensive ammunition, make sure that you cycle each and every hand-loaded round through the gun, making sure that it chambers easily and smoothly in the gun. You don't want to be in the middle of a gunfight or having a bear trying to eat you and you've got a round stuck in the chamber because you thought you could shrink the group size by a 32nd of an inch merely by neck sizing your brass.
Okay. And so, Daryl, when we're reloading, what are the cautions that you'd like to share with us to make sure that we don't do certain things that could be injurious to us?
Most importantly, we see errors in inattentiveness by the hand loader. He's got the TV on, he's got the radio on, the wife's chewing him out for not getting his chores done. He's got a lot of distractions there. When you get ready to reload, close the door, turn the TV off. Keep one powder on the loading bench at a time. Make sure that you have a fire extinguisher handy. Never prime cases next to your powder. Keep your powder covered up. When you're through loading with that specific powder, before you go off to have lunch, before you go down to the tavern, whatever the case may be, make sure that you put the powder away in its specified container. Do not leave it in the powder measure and come back in an hour, 2 days, or 2 weeks later and go, I wonder what powder that is in the powder measurer. Gosh, it looks kind of like 4350, or maybe it was pistol powder that I loaded last with. If in doubt, throw it out. If in doubt, burn it. You can throw it in the garden. It will break down there and act as a soil nutrient for you. But do not second-guess the type of powder because you left it in the powder measure. It's a good way to get a free trip to the emergency room. Make sure that you use starting load data. Having a good reloading manual at your disposal is very important. I like the loading manuals by Sierra and Nosler. A lot of great information there. Rather than watching Seinfeld reruns, grab the reloading manual, get comfortable, read it. A lot of great information, especially for new reloaders, in the reloading manual. Outside of that, you're in pretty good shape. Always wear safety glasses when you're hand loading, especially in the priming application. In case you have a primer go off, you're not doing the Helen Keller back to the phone to dial 911.
Daryl, this reminds me of you on stage doing the seminar. It's you're always a hoot to listen to. Hey, Daryl, when you're talking about reloading, there are several components that you cannot reuse, but there's one that you can. For example, you can't reuse the bullet. I mean, once you fire that cartridge, that bullet's gone. You can't reload it. You can't reload with it. You can't reuse the powder because that's just been spent. The primer is just been used, so you can't reuse that. But you can reuse the brass. So here's the question, Daryl: if you have good quality brass, and let's say we're talking about someone who has just shot a complete box of factory-produced cartridges, and let's say it's a name brand cartridge, and they want to reuse that brass. How many times can they reuse that brass by reloading it?
There's a couple of variables involved, and we'll go over those briefly. Number one, if your rifle was chambered with minimum headspace and you're not pushing the pressure envelope with that brass, you should be able to get 6 to 8 loadings per cartridge case. You may have to trim them depending upon how you're setting your dies up and how much you're pushing the shoulder back. But with proper die adjustment, minimal head spacing of the cartridge, 6 to 8 rounds per cartridge case before the primer pocket starts to get loose is not uncommon. And this is a method that I use to determine whether the load is really safe.
Okay. And when we come back, Daryl, would you tell us what we look for in those cases to determine whether we should reload it one more time or not? And the next question is nickel-plated versus just plain brass. Is there a difference in the number of times we can reload? Holland is with us, Daryl Holland, and I want to give you his phone number if you'd like to call his office, 541-439-5155. That's 541-439-5155. And you call him off after the broadcast, 541-439-5155. And if you go to usaprepares.com, page 1, there's a section that, the second column at the bottom where the instructors are, it says Daryl Holland, Holland's Shooter Supply. And you click on that, it'll take you right to his website. Daryl, standard brass cases versus nickel-plated brass cases. Is there a difference in the number of times that they can be reloaded?
Absolutely, and let's just kind of classify brass, if we can, while we're on the topic. In terms of brass, the gold standard is really being set by Lapua, L-A-P-U-A. It's the best brass out there. It's used by more competitive shooters, I think, than any other brass case out there. Next in line would probably be brass made by Norma. Very high-quality brass. Winchester brass, Remington Federal, Hornaday would probably come into line from there. The brass case itself is very important in terms of strength, integrity, repeatability, consistency in the loaded ammunition, and this is where Lapua really comes into play. While nickel cases really look cool, especially loaded with some of today's high ballistic coefficient hollow point bullets or polymer-tipped bullets, they're not my choice because you can't really anneal them as well. The nickel plating on them creates a very hard surface in the brass, and they will have a greater tendency to split in the neck-shoulder junction areas after repeated loading, whereas conventional brass cartridge cases, if you keep them annealed, you can lengthen their life considerably and keep the neck more ductile, which greatly improves the loaded round concentricity. For my match brass and my specialty calibers and stuff, I will anneal the brass every other loading. There are great annealing machines out there that are mechanized to do the job quickly and easily. If you can't afford one of those, you can take a candle and simply rotate it in like an electric screwdriver or a drill for about 15 seconds over a candle in the neck-shoulder area, and this will anneal the brass. You need to bring the brass case up to about 675 to 700 degrees in order to properly anneal it, keeping it soft and ductile.
Daryl, is that why when you look at a brass case, you will see a change in color in the neck and shoulder area of unfired brass?
That is correct. When we look at the high-quality brass that's produced by Lapua, Norma, even some of the new Hornaday brass now in the Creedmoor, you can see where they've gone in to anneal them. Yes, you'll see a discoloration in the neck-shoulder area of the brass.
So, Daryl, for $500 to $1,000, we can buy the equipment necessary to start reloading. We can buy top-quality equipment. We're not talking about junk. We're talking about something that will last a lifetime. Now, Daryl, how do you overcome this stigma? The question is, I went to the Chinese factory outlet. I bought, this was many years ago when I was teaching scouts firearm safety. I bought several boxes of 550 rounds of Federal hollow point 22 long rifle, and I could just, on the way back from the store, I thought, you know what? I can just see the paper. A teacher teacher, thousands of rounds of ammunition, gunpowder, explosives. I can just see me in the news for having that. How do you describe how not to have that be a negative? Having the explosive gunpowder on your property as a normal thing. How do you address that?
Well, obviously, any type of components, we need to keep them stored in a safe, cool, dry place. Lock cabinets are great, especially if you have kids running around and you don't have the time to properly educate them. I've been hand loading since I was 12 years old on a orange crate that was filled with lead shot bags in the front room of the house. So, again, our culture has obviously changed. Everybody's on this politically correct mantra regarding anything that may be dangerous. Hide all the sharp objects in your house. But with a little bit of common sense, if you keep the gunpowder safe, keep it dry, keep it cool, take your primers, long storage on primers. I like to vacuum seal them, put them in an ammo can. They'll last for years and years and provide great ignition.
Daryl, we're out of time. Daryl, we are out of time. Daryl Holland on the website, usaprepares.com. Please stay tuned for hour number 2. Daryl, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is usaprepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Hour number 2, usaprepares.com. Sam Bushman's with us. Sam Bushman's a veteran broadcaster, and he and I met at the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Convention in St. Charles, Missouri. And I had been listening to Sam Bushman on the radio for years and years. And we got a chance to meet, and we became very good friends very quickly. And Sam broadcasts on his network, and he talks about serious issues, liberty and the Constitution. And he's as outraged as I am about what's going on in this police state. Welcome, Sam Bushman.
Yeah, I'm livid, Vince. And I'm livid because of what's going on in America today. And as we get into it, I'll give you some headlines that'll knock your socks off in terms of the brazen, blatant, belligerent rogue agents in government and how they're behaving about their crimes. When their crimes are exposed, instead of days gone past where they've been chagrined and embarrassed, now they're just belligerent in your face saying, who cares? We're going to continue the tyranny.
Yeah, tough. You don't like it? Tough. We'll arrest you too. Yeah. Sam, I was on my way last night. Every Monday, as you know, we have a meetup at Ziggy's. It's a restaurant hangout where our listeners, our class, shows up every Monday at 5:30, Springfield, Missouri. And I was on my way to the meetup last night, and I was on a 3-lane highway heading into Springfield. 3 lanes wide each direction. And I crested the hill, and just as I crested the hill, there he was. On the side of the road, he had his motorcycle pulled off to the side of the road, ready for a quick getaway. There was this dark uniform cop. He was in a real dark uniform, dark blue. And he was crouched down, Sam, and he had his handheld sniper radar gun. And he was crouched down so he had the lowest silhouette that you could make. Really crouched down, and he was aiming this as if it were a sniper rifle at us coming toward him. We're paying this rogue thug cop to do this. Now, everybody that was traveling alongside of me was doing the speed limit, which was 60 miles an hour. Nobody was weaving in and out, cutting each other off, road rage, none of that. The only one that was out of control was this cop who was aiming, targeting, sniping microwave radiation right at our faces. I was so angry, I just leaned on the horn as I went by. I was furious, and I wanted to wave to him, but I figured if I did, I'd get arrested. I really did, and I was not in the mood for being detained from the meetup by this thug cop. These guys are out of control, and I'm angry about it, and I want them to stop. They are injuring us with microwave radiation, and let me tell you what I mean by that. Well, this ought to get me in a lot of trouble, but I'll tell it anyway. There's a book that's published. You can, if you go to a gun show, you can see these. I look at a lot of books at gun shows, and there's one that says how, and I'm not going to talk about exactly how to do it, but you can make a microwave transmitter, and you can literally, you can take parts that are available and make a microwave transmitter, and you can transmit microwaves at a bush. Let's say you've got a bush on your front yard and you say, shoot, I really don't like that thing. I'll just kill it. You can take this microwave device that you can make with parts left over that people throw away, and you can aim this at your bush and kill it. It will absolutely kill it. It's a weapon. And that's what these guys are aiming at us, to keep us safe. It makes me crazy.
I want to take a little idea here and help people understand, too. Your cop that's your neighbor, your cop that's your best friend's brother, or whatever the case may be. A lot of people have a relationship to members of the police in their area or whatever, and they say, listen, Sam, I appreciate what you and Vince are saying, but listen, my friend's just not that way. He's a good guy. He is. And my school teacher, my schools aren't bad. My school teacher, hey, she sings in my choir at church, and she's a good lady. I don't deny those things are true on an individual basis level. Mm-hmm. But what we've got is the training centers for these people are corrupt. The cop is trained that to do his duty to his God and to his country, he must realize that the people are an enemy, and that the people have sinister intentions, and the people are evil, and it's for their good that you've got to behave this way. And sad to say, when kids go to government school for, 13 years before you ever even start the collegiate indoctrination, and then you go to the collegiate indoctrination, and then to the police academy, and then to the FBI academy and everything else, it's no wonder they're not more rabid when they come out than they are. But what I'm getting at is they are indoctrinated to believe this way, that it's the way to go, the thing to do. And you think that I'm crazy, but I'll give you an example. What's that guy's name that was the IRS agent that left? Joe?
You're talking about the guy that flew his plane? You're talking... I'm talking about the guy that left the
IRS. He was an IRS agent. His name is Joe. FreedomAboveFortune.com is his website. I can't remember his last name right this second. Shoot, I can get it. Anyway, Joe basically said, I felt like I was like the hero for America. I wanted to become an IRS agent all my life because I believed that it was really what needed to happen to protect America, to raise legitimate revenues, to pay for the proper role of the best government in the world. Until Joe realized he had been played for a sucker. He listened to DV Kid on the radio, and he basically realized that the IRS was a con game. And he went and he dug into what was happening, and he asked his superiors at the IRS all kinds of questions. They wouldn't answer. They became hostile. He eventually lost his job over it. That's why it's called Freedom Above Fortune. But anyway, the point that I'm getting at is Joe legitimately believed that he was doing a great job for his country. He really believed that he was riding for the brand, defending the best and the brightest of the world, only to find out he had been played for a sucker. So my point being that just because your neighbor may be playing the role of a sucker right now, or the school teacher or whoever it is, they've been trained and indoctrinated, and they don't realize it. They may be good people. I bet you this cop, if you were to have him over for dinner at your house, I bet he wouldn't be a thug and your enemy. But he's trained and he believes he's doing what's right. Now, it's wrong, and I'm not defending his position, but I'm trying to get you to understand how this has become so sinister. If you ask most cops, would you go ahead and violate the law and beat up citizens and abuse people? They'd say, of course not. Oh, no, absolutely not. But when it comes down to it, they'll say, I had to do it. I'm just doing my job. Proving the indoctrination that's going on, and that's one of the biggest things we need to combat and educate people about. Joe is a great example of that, and he came clean once he had the chance to really realize what the real score was. He's been a patriot ever since, and he stood up for what's right. And it all happened because of the radio, Vince.
You're talking about Joe Bannister.
Yeah, I am. Exactly.
Yeah. Sam, I met a cop, a local cop. He and I were at Harbor Freight, and somehow we struck up a conversation. He was a young guy, and he'd been on the force maybe 15 years. And he said that he's been forced to go to do these training sessions. And they're told by the trainers, look, so we're talking about a local cop, a small town cop. Good guy. He said that they were being trained that, look, you know, when you pull somebody over, those little old ladies, they'll kill you. They will kill you. So you need to be prepared. You need to have your hand on your firearm when you approach.
They are your
because
enemy. They have it out for you.
They're your enemy. That's exactly what he was taught. And he's telling me this. And he's saying, this is crazy. These little old ladies aren't harmful. You know, maybe they had a traffic infraction. Maybe they needed a little bit of counseling saying, you know, use your turn signal or whatever it might have been, or your taillight is out, or whatever it might have been. But they're not out to kill you, and they're not going to shoot you because you want to counsel them. But the problem is the herd mentality. They get these guys into a classroom, these cops into a classroom, and they tell, the cops are being told how bad we are. And we are the enemy. They're taught this. And we're not the enemy. And what's really happening is they are becoming the enemy through this indoctrination that they're receiving. And like that guy that I was telling you about, Sam, the guy who's crouched down, I mean, what good is that going to do? Sniping. You know, if he just had his police car cruising up and down the highway looking for people who had flat tires or had emergencies, that might actually serve a purpose. But they don't do that anymore.
Well, and the problem is when a cop is out in the open as a gentleman, nice police officer, you know, in the old days you used to teach your kid if you have a problem, you know, look for a policeman. He'll be glad to help you. If you get lost, hey, the policeman can help you. But you think a kid instinctively, just think about this from a very childlike level. They're ready to go to the police, and they see this thug on a motorcycle all crouched down with a gun in his hand, pointing it at cars that go by all the time, and running around like a scared rabbit, kind of sniper style, in secret and ducking and hiding. And what do you think the kid intuitively is going to think? Mom doesn't have a clue, man. That cop ain't my friend. Right?
That's exactly right,
and that's
Sam.
what they're intentionally creating. They're dividing and conquering among all fault lines in America. Male, female, black, white, tall, short, fat, skinny. Remember, fat people can't get too big of soda pops. You know, so it's fat, skinny, ugly, beautiful, cop, person, government official, private sector. Every line they can find to divide, they're doing it. And this is a great example of this. And a lot of the cops are starting to realize it's a con game. The CSPOA is making a lot of difference. There's a lot of good people really starting to wake up to this. But the masses are still indoctrinated. They've been taught this for so long. They can't help it. But we can fix it if we work together.
There you go. Sam Bushman, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. We're talking about cops, and we're talking about the brainwashing that they receive. And they are forcing themselves to be our enemies. They're making this happen. We're not doing it. They are, because of their training. We'll be right back. Sam Bushman's with us. Sam, you know, I've been thinking, our texts are monitored, listened to, recorded in perpetuity.
Yeah, in fact, everything we do
emails
is that way. Justin Amash, congressman, just basically came out with a statement that said the NSA documents of all their spying on us were withheld from Congress by higher-ups. Justin Amash says
Who's higher
NSA
than
documents, chronicling the abuse, the violation of our rights and privacies, the spying going on by the NSA. The documents were withheld from Congress by higher-ups. Now, as I read the Supreme Law of the Land, Vince, there's three branches of government: executive, judicial, and legislative. The legislative is closest to the people. I don't see that there is a higher-up, is there, than your representative, than your Congress, than your elected officials? I want to know who did this, and I want heads to roll over this, Vince.
Well, and so do I. So here's the point, Sam. Our texts, our emails, our tweets, Facebook posts, our phone calls are being recorded. And in London, if you walk by a trash bin, they have a device that will detect who you are by the transmission of your cell phone in your pocket or purse or that you're carrying with you. So they even know when you're walking by a trash bin in the United Kingdom. Now, here's the whole point. They're using radar guns on us that have an effective range of 0.6 of a mile. That's pretty far. 0.6 of a mile. These guys are using scopes to pick us out with these radar guns. So now we have the text, the tweets, the emails, the radar guns. These guys are in uniform. And here's what they're doing, Sam. They are conditioning us to distrust every single person that works for the government. Every single one.
Well, and what they really want to push for is to get you to distrust your neighbors and everybody around you, too, so you're basically isolated and alone.
That's not going to work. My neighbors like us, and we like them.
I understand, but that's
But
their
you're
attempt,
absolutely right.
and it won't work in small-town America. It won't work in the smaller cities and in the good, close-knit neighborhoods. It won't work in my neighborhood because I know every one of my neighbors. I could go and knock on the door of every one of my neighbors and get help, borrow a cup of sugar, anything I like, every one of them. But all I'm telling you is in big-town USA, in the big cities, this is effective. Most people don't know and don't trust their neighbors.
Yeah, and not only that, we've said here on this broadcast, if you call 911, one of two things is going to happen. Someone's going to get shot, or someone's going to jail. It's as simple as that. So we don't recommend calling 911. We really don't. We really don't recommend calling 911. And the last thing that you want to do is if you have a discussion that is of elevated tone in your house, if someone calls 911 for your own safety, both of you can probably be hauled off as convicted felons or as felons. And then you won't be able to have a concealed carry permit or a weapon. And you won't be able to defend yourself. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about calling 911. And I suggest that you tell your children what could happen if one of them calls 911 because they hear mommy and daddy having an argument. Don't call 911. Sam?
I would agree with that. I would also say that take precautions, though. Do get to know your neighbors. Do find out who in your area, your local vicinity, your area can be a friend of yours that can help you should there be a crisis, should there be a need or a plea for help. There are places to go. Go to your good, honest neighbors who you trust. You can make agreements with your neighbors that, hey, you know what, my kids are going to run to your house. Your kids or your people can run to my house should there be a problem, a catastrophe, a threat, an issue. By all means, create safety plans. But I'm telling you, from experience, leave the government out of it. In fact, a former NSA boss just came out and said, we're spying on you, and we're going to continue. Get used to it. Did you know that? An NSA, mainstream press, NSA former boss just said that. We're going to continue spying on you. Get used to it. Justin Amash says the NSA hid documents from Congress. Higher up folks hid the documents. Who's higher up? Some global thug? Some presidential edict appointed bureaucrat? Who's higher than Congress? See, we've got a problem in America. Everywhere.
Yeah, and imagine that you have a fence in your backyard around your pool, right? And somebody just peers over the fence at your family in their bathing suits. That is an invasion of privacy. Sam, my I didn't mention this yet, but over the weekend I was checking fences. We had a lot of damage here in the Ozarks.
Before you get to that, really quick, I just want to give you a government headline to set the stage here.
Yeah.
Headline says this. IRS official Cindy Thomas, the one in charge of targeting patriot groups, just got promoted.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I believe we had a post on the website.
Out of control. It's as obvious as could be their agenda.
Okay. Well, let me tell you where I'm going. So I was checking fence because we had a lot of rain. We had well over a foot of rain in a week, and fences washed out. And so I was on a four-wheeler. I was not at the farmhouse, but I was coming back to the farmhouse. And one of the four-wheelers that we have is green, and it kind of blends in. It's not camo, it's just green. And it's a small four-wheeler, it's 250cc. So I was coming up where I couldn't be seen, and I saw flying over, just over treetop height, a helicopter flying over the trees, really, really low, Sam, a blue and white helicopter, flying right over my farmhouse roof. Just over treetop height. Now, there is absolutely no reason for a helicopter to be buzzing our farmhouse, okay? There's no reason. There's no reason to be flying over our farm for any reason. We're in the middle of nowhere, Sam. Literally.
And to be flying that low, too. What for?
And these guys... Right. That is the point. That's the point. And these guys came from... They did a flyby. I mean, a real low flyover of the farmhouse. And obviously they were up to something. Obviously. And they, it's not like they were descending over the farm to land. They were purposely flying really, really low. I mean, dangerously low. And I don't like it. And what would happen if I flew an aircraft at that height? What would happen? And we talked about the fences. If you have a fence around your pool and some guy from the neighborhood peers over the top of your fence and, kind of watches girls in bathing suits, in the pool, everybody be outraged. They'd be furious. Like, who is that guy? He's a pervert, right? Well, our government's doing it to us all the time. They've got drones. They're doing flybys. They're mapping our properties. I can count the cars where they're parked, and I can even tell what they are on our farm from these aerial shots of Google Map. I can count the bales of hay. It's unbelievable. I can count the cows swimming in the ponds.
Well, the cops,
on the farm.
The cops in the Army also have new technology. It's a 2100 plus pixel camera where they can take a picture of a crowd, and then with software they can click zoom, 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 and they can pick a face and tell you who it is out of thousands of people in a crowd photo.
Sam, this afternoon I'm going to post an article on the website that if you were to take it was sent to me by John and Judy Dollarhite of Dollar Value Computers. They're two of our instructors, and they come to the meetups. They sent me an article or a post on the website, and what happens is a picture can be taken of a young child. Okay, it's like, hey, let me take a picture with the iPhone or a smartphone, and then that picture can be used. Because it has GPS coordinates built into the picture, it can be used, and through some software that's commonly available, that very picture can be used to determine who that child is, where that child goes to school, what part of the park, what area of the park that child hangs out, plays with, where that child goes. There is and if that child were to be kidnapped, it's so easy because the child's routine is all there. All you need is a photograph. And that photograph can be picked up off the internet. It's unbelievable. We got to throw overboard the smartphones. We got to get rid of them.
Well, and the problem is, even if you try to educate those around you, Vince, that this is happening. I've educated my family to try to be relatively cautious. But then friends and cousins and sisters and brother-in-laws and family, friends, and people in the congregation, hey, they put up all those photos and tag you in them.
Yeah.
And so even if you're fairly educated, to a great degree, unintentionally maybe, but you're being sold out by everybody around you.
Yeah. Through their naivete. They just don't get it. Sam, 10% of Americans think that Congress is doing a good job. How can that be? How can that be?
Well, here's the deal.
10%.
You put enough bread and circus in front of folks, Vince, and they're just not cognitively engaged.
10% of, or 11% of those surveyed in New York City think Anthony Weiner's doing a good job. And they don't have a problem with him. It's unbelievable.
It is.
Absolutely.
But again, the media can set the stage and set the narrative. Let me give you an example. This guy in Idaho that supposedly kidnapped somebody. Okay?
Yeah.
First off, the guy's innocent until proven guilty. Do we agree with that in America still, or is that not the case anymore?
Sure, but they sniped him and killed him.
Okay, so much for a trial to find out if he's really guilty or what the real backstory was, or maybe he had a legitimate. I'm not saying that he was not guilty. I don't know. What I'm saying is, are we really going to set the narrative in America where you're just dead before you can defend yourself? You're just guilty and still proven innocent if you get the chance before you're wiped off the map? Okay, this is crazy. But again, it's indoctrinating people and setting the narrative that, buddy, if the media tells you they're an enemy, they're an enemy. And you can kill them before they can ever even defend themselves on a hunch, on a thought, Now, why this guy was with the girl, I don't know. It looks like he was guilty from the information we have. I get all that. But I also get that he's innocent until proven guilty, and I also get that he should have a chance for a trial to lay out the facts and find out what's really going on. He'll never have that chance, sir, because our government is just too belligerent, too crazy, too over the top, kill him, and they basically pitch it in the media, and everybody, I bet you if you ask 8 out of 10 Americans, oh yeah, that guy had to be killed. He was belligerent, out of control, crazy, had to. It isn't the truth, folks. It isn't the truth. He's innocent until proven guilty, and we should have done everything we could to give that guy a chance to have a fair trial. That's our obligation in America. It might not be true in tyrannical countries, but in America, that should be the reality, right?
Absolutely. Sam, I'm going to share something with you. There was a post on the internet about the sniper team that killed that guy and the alleged kidnapper, right? There's a photo of these guys, and they're just laughing like they just won the lottery. I'm talking about the two snipers. They're laughing like they won the lottery. This is murder. Murder, Sam. Whether this guy is guilty or not, those guys executed him. Sam, it makes my blood boil. There is in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, in the sheriff's office, they have a wall of fame. And these guys have contests, and these contests are sponsored by equipment manufacturers. One sponsor is a tactical optics company called EO Tech. Okay, they sponsored a competition. So these guys win these awards, and one of the awards was for a sniper-initiated assault. That's legalized murder. Sniper-initiated assault. These guys, Orange County, Virginia, I drove past. They've got a SWAT vehicle. This thing is a big, black, shiny box. It's a truck. And in gold letters, I mean, this thing is waxed to beat the band. They're really proud of this thing. It says SWAT on the side in gold letters. It's a prize. It's like, this is good. This is good. We got this machine that can deploy, I don't know how many agents, and they can kill those targets. They've got tasers, they've got handcuffs, they've got batons, pepper spray. What's wrong with arresting somebody that is believed to have committed a crime if the person is known to be worthy of arrest, and then trying that person in a speedy trial of his or her peers. What's wrong with
I
that?
believe a little bit of patience could have got this guy, could have given him a fair trial, could have got the girl away from him safely. It's possible that it could have went wrong. You never know. But we need to make every attempt in that regard. But here's what they've got. They've got the bread and circus going on, while a good significant number of Americans are on food stamps or on some kind of a dull program. We all sit back and watch our TVs, one of the greatest indoctrination tools ever invented, and we all sit back and watch the chase. It reminds me of O.J. Simpson of yesteryear, or the Trayvon Martin thing. We're constantly watching some staged event unfold, and then it ends in murder, and then these guys are going, man, they had to do it, and the indoctrination for the mainstream press, talking reporters, is, they had to. This guy was armed and dangerous. He would have killed that little girl. He hadn't killed her. He had her for several days. He hadn't killed her, right? So
Right.
The Randy Weaver scenario. Hey, Lon Horiuchi shot the mother with a baby in her arms. Lon Horiuchi was the government sniper that did that. Zero accountability, sir. Why shoot a mother unarmed with a baby in her arms? Well, because they say she was the leader of that home, and she basically, if they get rid of her, everything else would fall apart. They have evil intentions, and they don't want to see justice done. They don't want the American, in my opinion, rule of law, natural God's law or the common law, to take hold. They want a vigilante sort of, they're the kingmakers. They do what they want, and they indoctrinate the people through watching these unfolded scenarios come to conclusion with a message. That's what will happen to you if you don't take part in the bread and circus, if you don't be part of whatever. It had to happen. It's a whole indoctrination agenda for the nation is what it is. They're in my opinion, intentionally preparing us to accept this viewpoint. And it's going to be Operation Snitch pretty soon, where they're going to prepare us to rat on each other, full out. They've already had initiatives relating to this, but it'll come to more and more and more and more in your face. Everybody will rat on everybody, and you'll be able to trust no one. That's what they want to get to. The greatest solution you can have is to get to know your neighbors, get to know the police in your neighborhood, make friends with these people. That is the answer.
You're absolutely right. Sam, when we come back, I'm going to tell you a short story about Randy Weaver. I met Randy Weaver, and we were talking about how his wife was shot through the front door of his cabin. We'll be right back. Many years ago, I met Randy Weaver, and he and I were talking. And we were talking about the event where the ATF set him up. It was a setup that went bad. And in 1992, federal agents, showed up on his property. There was a sniper team there. And they did not identify or announce themselves, and the Weaver's dog barked as any dog would, as ours would here at the farm. And Randy Weaver's son went out to find out what was going on. He had a rifle with him. And the agents killed the dog. They shot the dog. And Randy Weaver's son returned fire. These were unidentified, unannounced agents. And so from the perspective of Randy Weaver's son, he knew that his dog was shot. Someone shot his dog, and he returned fire. Good for him, right? How many of you would have done the same thing? All right, so anyway, what happens is, next is his son runs back into the cabin, and shortly thereafter, Randy Weaver's wife is at the front door, and Lon Horiuchi, sniper, executed her. Shot her right through her own front door.
Government hired executioner. She was unarmed with a baby in her arms.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, Sam, my greatest fear, and I've said this on the air, my greatest fear is these guys are going to show up at the farm. They're going to bash through the front door, and there's going to be a shootout. Because when somebody comes to our farm unannounced, body armor, armored vehicles, guns, I don't think they're my friends. And
but
what
I got
I want to know is
for the government to put this on record, Vince. All they'd have to do is meet Vince at Ziggy's and politely walk up and say, hey, you know what, can we chat? Or all they'd have to do is meet at church or meet at, call you up on the phone, send you a letter. I mean, there's peaceful ways to do this, and that's the problem is they're not pursuing peaceful means. They want a problem.
Yeah, it's on the record now. So, government, if you want to meet me, you can contact me at Ziggy's. I'm there every Monday night.
Or you can get a hold of him on the phone, for crying out loud. I mean, don't tell me you don't know his phone number. Come on.
It's on the website. I'll give it to you right now. 417-462-1105. 417-462-1105. So now everybody knows. That's my phone number. And if the government wants to contact me, they can call me. They can call me. They don't need to bash down the door. And by the way, Sam, when they bash down somebody's door and they're wrong, which is a lot of cases, who pays for the door? Who pays for the damage?
Well, they're sorry about that, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you get. I want to give you a headline that kind of shows the problem we've got. In Colorado now, the government officials, the legislature in particular, has what are called special license plates. They're custom license plates that do not show up in the DMV databases. They do not show up in the ability to give tickets or parking tickets or speeding tickets. They have special license plates. This is just more evidence of them creating an intentional us versus them mentality.
Yeah, and I had to buy new license plates because mine wore out. They couldn't read mine with their electronic surveillance devices, so I and everybody else who had license plates that were more than a couple of years old had to buy new ones, regardless of how well we maintained them. Mine didn't have a ding, a dent, a scratch. Mine were absolutely as good as the day that I got them, except for a little bit of dirt on them, because I live on a dirt road. But I had to buy new license plates because they didn't have the reflective capability of being read by these license plate scanners. So I had to buy new ones, along with everybody else. And we can't even find out who these guys are. And they have these Velcro name tags. They peel off their name tags. They peel them off their uniforms because they want to be anonymous. And what's with these ski masks in the summer? What's with them? Why do these guys have to be? What are they afraid of? Are they afraid that we might find out who they are and come knock on their door?
We stand for peaceful solutions, ladies and gentlemen. The question is, do they? By their fruits shall ye know them.
There you go. Yeah, and I hate to say it, Sam, but they're not playing nice. We are. They're not. I don't like it. I want them to knock it off. I want them to become like we are, peaceful. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. And let's use peaceful means. Sam Bushman, thanks so much for being with us.
Anytime, my friend. Godspeed.
Godspeed.